have been saying in my last few videos, check them out by the way, that faith is an important element in this show, and this episode really explores that for most of the key characters. I'm Al, this is the Geek in Review, and I'm going to be talking about Foundation Episode 8, so if you haven't seen it, this will contain spoilers. Now straight away we get a mention of faith from the Anacrean Huntress. The episode opens with a flashback from her childhood, and initially I wasn't sure what it was. There's a couple of kids running through the woods, and I thought they were going to find the animals that Brother Dawn had left from a few episodes ago, but we find out it's actually the attack on Anacrea from 35 years ago from the very first episode, and this is the Huntress when she's a little girl. Now she talks about how after this, how God guided her and faith playing a big part. Straight away this episode's going in hard and fast with the message. Now picking up with the Salvor storyline, I am going to be breaking down this episode into the individual storylines and not breaking it down into the beats like I usually do. She gives her an ultimatum saying if she doesn't help her take control of the ship, she'll tell her men to kill all the remaining colonists on Terminus. So Salvor's got the option of destroying Trantor or getting killed, because let's be honest, causing the fall isn't really what the Foundation's all about. They're there to manage the damage, not create it. We also find out that there was a mutiny on the Invictus, and we do get a lot more backstory on some of the technology and things in this world, which they haven't leaned too heavily into so far. Salvor manages to get hold of a weapon and secures herself on the bridge with the remaining encyclopedists, and they find an odd message suggesting that the ship was attacked from some sort of unknown force. Now, they don't really say it's aliens, but they don't say it's not. With everything going on, I don't know how they would fit this story beat in. So it's going to be very interesting to see, but we don't get anything beyond that in this episode. Now they've still only got 20 minutes before they need to jump, and we do get a better understanding of how the jump technology works. As the Invictus is an old ship, it needs a human brain connected directly to the jump computer to basically navigate. It's explained like it's sort of intuition and luck, which, given Salvor's abilities, make her the perfect candidate. If you've ever watched the remake of Battlestar Galactica or Babylon 5, it's a bit like the Cylon base star or the Shadow ship that needs a human as a sort of central processor to operate. Before they can jump, the ship is attacked, and they end up jumping while everyone's still awake. Now the whole season they've sort of drip fed us these little stories and these little hints about what goes on when you jump, what do you see, how would it affect the human brain. And I guess we're going to find out in the next episode, because that's sort of where the Salvor story ends. But back on the ship with Gaal and Harry, we find out that she's had her ability for quite a while, in fact her entire life. And for me, this does raise a few questions about who else is out there that can do this, and is it widely known, is it not widely known? The Empire is absolutely huge. So it could be that there maybe is an organisation or these people that have got together. But going back to the revelation from last week, we find out that she's been having premonitions her entire life. So because she's sort of been judging or following the path, it's almost kind of predetermined, which greatly explains her involvement with psychohistory and Harry and how she can understand which things that not a lot of people can. But the Harry hologram is worried that her premonitions could negate psychohistory, and he tells her the purpose of the ship's journey is to set up the second foundation. Now, although there has been critics of the pace of this show, myself included, I didn't think they'd mention the second foundation or they'd get to it this quickly. And I'm also pretty sure on the books that it's on Trantor, not Harry's home planet, but I could be wrong about that. Now, while there's a lot of conversation between Harry and Gaal, it doesn't really further the story that much, other than Gaal is the character in this episode that's lost faith. She's lost faith in Harry. She was never supposed to be on this ship. She was supposed to be on Terminus, leading the first foundation. So we don't really go that much forward after last week's ending. She basically forces Harry's hand and sabotages the ship, so he has to let her go. And she does take the knife with her when she gets back into the stasis pod, so I guess she's taken the Harry hologram as well. She plots a course which is going to take 130 years to arrive, because it's not a light speed or a jump capable ship. So unless something happens, I don't think we're going to see her back this season unless it's a time jump at the end of the season leading into potential stories for the second one. Now, the confrontation between Brother Day and Proxima Halima really kicks off in this episode. Day's at the spiral, which, I'll be honest, I think was kind of arrogant that this guy's going to try and take this on. He's probably never had to go through something so physical in his life. And it's nearly 200 kilometres long, and with no food, and the fact that he's got to remove all his technology, so it's no nanobots, none of that personal shield nonsense, so he's just like everyone else. That's not a clone, which is everyone else. And Demerzel's taking him through what he can expect, and he doesn't really seem that phased by it. His task's going to involve getting a vision, and he doesn't really grasp, I don't think he's really got the understanding of the danger that he's going to be in. And Demerzel's quite concerned, rightly so, that if he doesn't make it, how it's going to affect the public image with the Empire, especially he's just doing this to sort of prove Proxima Halima wrong. While he's on his journey in the spiral, he meets a man who doesn't recognise who he is, and Day lies about who he is. Now, that to me doesn't make sense, as not only does this guy have the most famous face in the Empire, he is the Empire, and there's been like 13 or 14 versions of this guy's face already, and the public seemed to know that he was on the planet, and it was made quite a big deal of, so the fact that he doesn't recognise Brother Day didn't really make sense to me. But along the journey, the man decides to give up, and Brother Day's trying to talk him out of it and is trying to get him to finish the journey, but the guy says he's not that particularly bothered, as he believes that his soul will be reborn. And this is the bit that's a sort of lightning bolt for Brother Day. He's confronted with the fact that he'll never have this faith. But it's also an important scene because it's probably the first time a Cleon has spoke to a common man ever. And one of the problems of the Empire is perspective. They've got a very let them eat cake idea about how the Empire should be run. So maybe this is going to give him a new point of view, and maybe there is hope for this guy. Also, going back to the faith element, he's giving off some serious Jesus vibes with the hair and the towel, plus the whole aspect of being on trial in the desert. And as none of the clones were in the book, this was kind of unexpected, and faith isn't really focused on this much in the novels. This guy dying did really seem to affect Brother Day. When he gets back and explains the visions to the leaders of the faith, they interpret it as sort of faith or destiny that's brought him here, therefore solidifying his place. So he's essentially beaten Proxima Halima at her own game. Did this really change him, do you think? Well, no, because you find out that he actually didn't have a vision, and he's manipulated the whole thing, just telling them what they want to hear so it would end up in his favour. Demerzel goes to see Halima, who's no longer going to be Proxima, and we find out that Demerzel is 11,000 years old, which, wow, this explains her maintenance. She's the last intelligent robot in the galaxy, and Halima says that there had been rumours that the Cleons had such a robot, but no one really knew, and I didn't really expect this. They've not really touched on the fact that Demerzel was a robot as much as I thought they would have, and they've not really gone into her past. So now we know how old she is. It does give a bit of a frame of reference, but as our perspective of the Empire is sort of quite small and limited to the time frames we've seen at the moment, we don't know. They could open this up to a lot of possibilities, especially going forward. They debate if Demerzel has a soul, and Demerzel basically says she doesn't think so because she has to obey the programming no matter what else she believes in. And yeah, I think she's got a point, because she's sent there to kill Halima by Cleon, so she poisons her and basically makes it look like natural causes. So at the moment, she can't overcome her core programming, which is to obey these guys. Now, there was a lot going on in this episode, and I didn't think they would lean so heavily into the faith aspect in a single episode. I thought they were going to build it up to maybe the second season. But from what we can tell, the second season is probably going to be the start of the second foundation, which I'm pretty excited for. I've started rereading the books, and I'm just about at that point just now. There's tons of stuff, but with the whole Cleons and not being involved in the books or not being included in the original source material, I'm going to be very interested to see what's going to happen with them. We didn't get any of the other two clones this week, so I suspect we'll focus on that next week along with the vault opening up. I really enjoyed this episode and I'm looking forward to the season tying up. Then we've got The Expanse kicking off towards the end of the year as well, so oh, what a time. If you've made it this far, thanks for watching and please leave